Hi, and welcome to Stamp with Jini. Today I'm going to use the Blueberry Bunches stamp set to create this lovely fun fold card to send somebody as a thank you. So let me set this aside and I'll show you how I got started. To start this fun fold card, I'm going to bring in my cardstock base and open up my trimmer. I'm going to set this on the 4 1/4 inch mark, like so, and I'm going to use my lighter blade and score, and then I'm going to slide it over to the 8 1/2, and I'm going to score again. Okay, now that I have that done, I want to take this score line and set it on the 1 inch mark, and I'm going to fold this simply so you can see it a little better. There we go. So I've got it on the 1 inch mark here, and I can bring it down to this line that's underneath that 1 inch mark. And then I'm going to swing the bottom right hand corner to the cutting blade. So 1 inch mark, set that there. I'm going to slide this down so that I can see that line a little better. I've got that where I want it to be, and so I am going to cut this off using the dark blade, like so. Okay, I've got my card base done, and I can set the side pieces to the side, and I am going to bring in the designer series paper and a piece of cardstock, and we're going to cut these next. I'm going to start with the cardstock here, and I'm going to set it on the 7/8 inch mark, and that's 2 little lines in front of the 1 inch, and then I am going to swing this bottom edge down along the track. So I can do that by simply rotating and making sure I have it where I want it. This track has a little groove in case you need to use that. And I'm going to fold it closed and cut. Now at this point, this should fit right into my cardstock base, and as you can see it does. I can set this little piece to the side, and I can bring in the designer series paper. Now this time I'm going to place the top left hand corner on the 3 1/4 inch mark, and I'm going to put the point on the track. So let me get that lined up. See, I'm going to flip this around so the darker edge is on the 3/4, so it's a little easier to see, and the point is on the track. I'm going to close that and trim. And let's see, I need to move that point over just slightly because I had a flat edge, so I'm going to trim that one more time. There we go. I've got my designer series piece done, and you can see it fits right there on the mat. So we're ready to start building the card. I'm going to bring my card base in here and fold it on the score line, and then bring this flap in on the left, and I want it to fold like so. So I want to make sure that's nice and flat simply by holding down my bone folder and running it across. At this point, I'm going to bring in the mat that we created along with the designer series paper and adhere them. These mats have very tight margins, so you want to be careful where you're going. I'm going to flip this over to this full panel and bring in my designer series paper. This happens to be a second pattern from the pack of color collections, and you can choose which side you'd like. I'm going to adhere this to the cardstock, and then I'm going to place that cardstock onto the flap. There you go. I've got this beautiful fun fold with that little pop of color, and I'm ready to do my focal point and my inside panel. Okay, I'm going to start with the stamping for this, and I'm going to bring in my focal point here and the large bunch of blueberries and ink it up with my Memento. And then I'm going to line this up on my cardstock quickly and easily here and stamp. This is a large image, so I'm going to use my palm to do that. I'm going to set that aside. And let's see, bring in my smaller group of blueberries, ink it up, also with the Memento, and I'm going to tuck that down here in the corner of my signature panel on the left bottom edge. I've got that done and I'm ready to bring in my sentiment. Now this little piece is going to go through my punch. I'm going to use this larger end, and it's a 3/4 inch punch or piece of cardstock, so I'm going to slide that in on the groove, line it up and punch, and then I'm going to flip it around and repeat. Now if this is too tiny for you to hold, you can use a post-it note or something to grab the end to make it easier. I've got my punching done first, so next I'm going to stamp. I'm going to ink up my thank you and stamp right in the center there. I've got my stamping finished and I'm ready to color. So I'm going to bring my Stampin' Blends in, and I've got 2 different shades of blue. I've got the blueberry and the azure, and then I also brought in the fresh freesia. If you've ever looked at blueberries growing, the ones that aren't quite ripe have a pink tint to them, and so that's what I'm going to use the fresh freesia for. And then of course my granny apple. Now I'm using the 2 different blues because I want to add a little bit of depth to the blueberries. And I'm going to start first with the darker blueberry bushel. So I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to pick up my light and I'm going to lay in that color simply by going around the blueberry quickly. And of course a light color allows you to get in those tight spaces that you want to do. And then I'm going to bring in the dark, and I'm going to bring that color in where those lines are that Stampin' Up! Has given us for shading. Just quickly and easily. I'm going to go back over this with my light just to blend it in. And then I'm going to bring in my dark fresh freesia here, and I'm going to add a little bit of that purple to it quickly just by adding a little brush stroke. There we go. I'm going to move on to the next blueberry, which is this back one here, and do the same process. I've kind of gone out, so I'm going to bring my color lifter and push that color back in. And of course I can add that to my blueberry also to give it a little bit of a highlight, like so. Okay, I've got that finished and I'm ready to work on this lighter one, and I'm going to use the dark again to do that. I've got my dark blueberries done and I'm ready to move on to the azure. Now I added a little bit of the fresh freesia to this dark berry, but you might want to add it to the lighter ones here since they're going to be a little lighter in color and the fresh freesia will show up easily. But I wanted to show you what that looks like on both of the blends colors. So we're going to fill in that flower or the blueberry quickly with our light and then come back with our dark. And then blend some more. And of course I can bring in my color lifter and add some color or remove some color from those petals if I would like. There we go. The last blueberry, I'm going to do the same process, but I'm going to add a little of the fresh freesia. So starting with my light, bringing in that fresh freesia, and then bringing back and going over it with the light again. And as you can see, that hint of purple comes through, and I can add my color lifter again to pull out some of that color and highlight those areas. And let's see, I'm going to add some here also. Moving on to our granny apple, I'm going to lay in my dark and then go over it with the light granny apple. I'm simply going to follow where I think the light is going to hit, like so. I'm going to do the stems with the dark. And then continue. And once again, if you go out of the lines, you can push that color back in with your color lifter. Do it a couple of times, wait for it to dry to see where you're at. And of course, you can even add a little lift of color on your leaves if you would like to, like so. So I'm going to push that back a little bit more. I've been moving quickly, so I've gone out of the lines a few times. I've got my focal point done, and I can move on to the inside of the card. So there we go. I've got my coloring done, and we're ready to move on to finishing our card. I'm going to add my focal point onto the panel here. And of course, the blends do go through the cardstock, no worries there. And I'm going to place my inside signature panel here on the top of the cardstock mat, like so. And then place it on the inside of my card. Now the inside of my card, because of the way this folds, is going to be right here on the left. Now the mat does add a little bit of weight to this card, so if that bothers you, you can leave that off. But I liked the pop of Granny Apple there for the inside of the card. Next, I'm going to close this card, and I am going to add my sentiment panel. Now my sentiment, or the focal point, the sentiment is going to go here on the bottom, but I want to do the panel first. And I'm looking at this here, and I want to make sure I only add adhesive to this side, but I want it centered. So I'm going to take my two fingers, put it top and bottom, and I'm going to run a little bit of adhesive here on the right side along the angle, and then I'm going to add a line of adhesive here on the side on the left so that it will fit right on there where I want it. And if I set it down straight, you'll see it is perfect there with no adhesive sticking out. I've got that finished, and I'm going to pop up my sentiment a little bit, and I want it hanging over the left slightly. So I'm going to bring in my dimensionals. Now I don't need to worry about where I put these because it's going to be on the one flap, and I am not worried about adhering my card closed. Let's see, so I'm going to put it just like so, a little bit up so that you can see that stem peeking out. Now that I have that finished, I want to add a little bit of shimmer and shine. So I'm going to bring in my transparent adhesive back dots. These come in 4 colors, and I'm going to be focusing on the lemon lime twist down here. I think it complements the green just fine. And I'm going to pick up a couple of these and scatter them around my card front. See, I think I'm going to put one over here. A large one down here. And I think a small one right here on the sentiment. And of course you could add more if you would like, but I'm happy with that. I hope you've enjoyed this fun fold using the Blueberry Bunches stamp set. This stamp set can be found in my online store. And of course, if you'd like any of these products, feel free to stop by my online store. You can get there from my blog, Stamp with Jini. Thanks for joining me.